Dillian Whyte has been the underdog several times in his career before. And other than when he lost to Anthony Joshua, he's always managed to rise to the occasion and prove people wrong. I mean, going into the Lucas Brown fight, there was a hell of a lot of people picking him to lose. I can't remember what the bookies' odds were, who was favourite, but certainly the public perception was that Dillian Whyte had his work cut out for him. Same thing going into the Joseph Parker fight. A lot of people were picking Joseph Parker to win. Dillian Whyte proved them wrong. Well, he may need to prove people wrong once again, and I'm sure he's got no issue doing that, but he may need to prove people wrong once again, including myself, if he fights Andy Ruiz in 2020, because that's one of the names which is being floated about as a possible opponent for Dillian Whyte. Eddie Hearn's been talking about it. Whyte himself has been talking about it. Now, I said in my Facebook boxing group and here on YouTube well over a year ago that I would pick Andy Ruiz to beat Dillian Whyte. This is long before Andy Ruiz beat AJ. Some of you may remember me saying this. That just based on styles, I feel like Andy Ruiz would have enough to beat Dillian Whyte. Doesn't mean I'm right. Dillian Whyte might manage to beat Andy Ruiz the way he was able to beat other people. But styles make fights, okay? And Andy Ruiz got very fast hands. Doesn't have the fastest feet, but the height difference between Ruiz and Dillian Whyte is not massive. You know, he's not going to be fighting somebody 6'6" like AJ. He should be able to close the distance against Dillian Whyte much more easily and unload those very, very fast combinations. And at the time when I was saying that I would pick Andy Ruiz to beat Dillian Whyte, I was ridiculed. Oh, yes, I was. People were saying, oh, Andy Ruiz went the distance with Kevin Johnson. How the hell can you pick him to beat Dillian Whyte? That's ridiculous, Hatman. Come on. This is what I was getting from people on YouTube and in my Facebook group. But after he beat AJ, now it don't look like such a silly pick, does it? Maybe I do know a little bit about boxing, you know, maybe. So, yeah, I would still pick Andy Ruiz to win. But what I would say is I would expect a very, very competitive fight. Dillian Whyte is not going to be able to move around the ring like AJ did. He doesn't have that kind of athleticism. He doesn't have that kind of foot speed. He doesn't have the height and the reach of AJ. So he's not going to be able to do that. He will move around, but not to that extent. But despite the fact that I would lean towards Andy Ruiz winning, there are certain weaknesses that Andy Ruiz has which would make Dillian Whyte a very, very live underdog in my mind. And the main weakness that Andy Ruiz has, which Dillian Whyte, I think, could exploit, is the fact that Andy Ruiz really doesn't move his head very well. He stands straight up. He's not a guy who bends at the waist. So, for example, people like Derek Chisora are not as highly regarded as Andy Ruiz. Oscar Rivas probably isn't as highly regarded as Andy Ruiz at this point. But both of those guys, say what you want about them, both those guys move their head way better than Andy Ruiz. Oh, yes, they do. Andy Ruiz stands straight up, people. He doesn't come in rolling underneath your shots, bobbing and weaving. He doesn't do that. And really and truly, it's his belly getting in the way, preventing him from doing that. So Dillian Whyte would probably find Ruiz to be a more available target than Chisora or Rivas were. Rivas himself never had great head movement, but in that Dillian Whyte fight, I saw a real improvement in Rivas's head movement. And he was certainly moving his head a lot more than Andy Ruiz normally does. So I think Dillian Whyte would probably find the target against Ruiz much more easily than he did against Chisora or Rivas. But I think Ruiz is a more formidable offensive force than Chisora or Rivas. So I think it'll be a really good fight, to be honest. Dillian Whyte said it's a fight he's interested in. Anybody can get it if it makes sense financially. You know, he's ready to rock and roll. I'm sure Andy Ruiz would like that fight. I'm sure he would fancy his chances against Dillian Whyte. So yeah, I'd like to see it. And just because I'm picking Ruiz to win, you know, doesn't mean I'm writing Dillian Whyte off. It's no disrespect to the guy or his supporters. Maybe Dillian Whyte will prove me wrong. He's proven plenty of people wrong throughout his career. Maybe this will be another occasion. But it's a good fight at the end of the day. I would probably make it maybe 55-45 in Ruiz's favor, maybe 60-40 in Ruiz's favor in my mind. But Dillian Whyte, as I say, very good left hook, hits hard, and the exchanges in the Ruiz Dillian Whyte fight would be ferocious, because they're two ferocious fighters. I think Dillian Whyte has got the harder, he's the harder puncher, more one-punch power than Ruiz, but Ruiz, of course, is very fast, and when he puts his shots together, very dangerous, The accumulation of punches when he's catching you in quick succession, as we saw in the first fight with AJ, it's no joke. And Dillian Whyte being a left hooker, Andy Ruiz also likes that punch. So who would come off best in those left hook exchanges? Would Dillian Whyte end up in the same situation as Anthony Joshua, exchanging left hooks with Andy Ruiz? Or would Andy Ruiz end up in the same situation as Derek Chisora, flat on his back? We all know that Andy Ruiz got a good chin, but it doesn't mean he's incapable of getting knocked out. He went down against AJ, as we all saw. If Dillian Whyte catches him right, you never know. You could see Andy taking a long nap on the canvas. So it's a fight I'd be really intrigued to see. I'd be excited about that fight. It's a great matchup as far as I'm concerned. So hopefully we get to see it. Who would you guys pick in the comment section below? Would you, like me, be picking Ruiz? And how many of you would have picked Ruiz over Whyte prior to June 1st, 2019? Because I think I was probably one of the few who would have picked Ruiz over Whyte. And I went on record saying it. But maybe I'm wrong. That's the great thing about this matchup. There are so many caveats to it. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. And as well, Dillian Whyte is a very good counterpuncher with the left hand. He also counters with the right hand, but is primarily his left hook. He's very reactive with that punch. If you throw a shot, Dillian Whyte is so fast to counter with that left. Interesting to see how Andy Ruiz deals with that, And obviously Dillian Whyte likes the body punches and all that kind of stuff. Didn't look impressive against Marius Wack, and a lot of people are saying, on that performance, he's not going to beat any of the top guys. But let's be real, that wasn't Dillian Whyte at his best. That was Dillian Whyte grossly overweight. That was Dillian Whyte, not being in the best place mentally for several months. That version of Dillian Whyte who fought Marius Wack, he wouldn't have beaten Joseph Parker. He wouldn't have beaten Oscar Rivas, that version of Dillian Whyte. So let's be clear, that is not the version of Dillian Whyte who did beat those guys. Yeah, because he wouldn't have beaten them in that form. So let's take Dillian Whyte at his best and think about him in that context against any of the top guys. Andy Ruiz being one of them. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. It's happening. I'm out.